can't even build a country.
Reality.
Yeah.
Reality, and describing about the sectarian,
Yes.
about the sectarian dimensions.
Yes.
The only solution for the current Iraqi crisis. Actually, everybody all over the world, and specifically the Arab world, knows well that the Iraqis are dealing with each other on basis of sectarian
Yes.
dimensions.
Yes.
That is why everybody realizes well that there is a kind of implicit conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran all over the region, because Saudi Arabia wants to protect the Sunni Islam, and Iran wants to Iranize the Middle East region, and specifically the Arab countries. So what I want really to say is that Iraq is a sovereign and an independent country, and it has to act with what achieves its own public interest, regardless of the sectarian or the racial dimensions that will destroy the country and will never contribute to reconstruction.
Okay, let's move on to the next item from Al-Ahram Online that reads: Moscow hosts UN envoy for talks to save Syrian truce. The news item itself reads: desperate efforts to salvage Syria's ceasefire shifted to Moscow on Tuesday as the country's battered second city, Aleppo, came under fresh fire that killed at least 14 people. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov was due to hold talks with UN envoy Staffan de Mistura in the Russian capital in a last-ditch bid to rescue peace negotiations that had been undermined by fierce fighting around Aleppo. High-profile talks follow a day of diplomacy in Geneva as Secretary of State John Kerry added his weight to efforts to resuscitate the stuttering truce. Kerry said the situation in the war-torn country was in many ways out of control and deeply disturbing as a 2-month-old ceasefire brokered by Washington and Moscow hangs on by the thread. Scrimmages continued in and around Aleppo, where more than 250 people have died during a week of violence. Rebel rocket fire on government-held districts of the city killed at least 4 civilians, including a child, earlier today, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights group said. Why is Aleppo excluded from the ceasefire? That's very strange.
This actually, the Syrian crisis is extremely complicated and highly sophisticated. That is why it's not easy for anybody to give an accurate analysis for everything which is taking place over there. Anyway, I think that what is happening right now, what belongs to hosting a new round of talks in Moscow between the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov from one hand and the UN Private Envoy for Syria Staffan de Mistura on the other hand, will never reach a political solution for the crisis, because that solution has to be Syrian 100%. The Syrians themselves must be ready. The Syrian government and opposition must be completely ready to reconcile it with each other.
But they don't want to.
Exactly. This is the main obstacle which stands in the way of their reaching a political solution for the crisis. Actually, there is a conception for how there's a proposal of how the Syrian government and opposition can get out of the current crisis. Such a proposal, from my point of view, or from my personal perspective, is completely based on a political transition. Really, Syria carried out parliamentary elections or legislative elections last month, but actually it was completely boycotted by the opposition. That is why the opposition itself never acknowledged the results of such parliamentary elections. So the political transition has never started up to this moment.
Yes.
The second step is that the Syrian opposition insists on the step down of the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and it completely rejects any role to be played by him during the coming political transition, and this is
impossible.
Exactly, this is impossible because once the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad steps down, there will be a political vacuum in the country. Such a vacuum will be completely filled by the terrorist groups, such as Al-Qaeda linked Jabhat al-Nusra, in addition to the ISIS or the ISIL, the Islamist State jihadist group in Syria and Iraq. As I have said, the Syrian opposition and government have to cooperate with each other and have to work together in order to put an end to such a catastrophic crisis which killed 500,000 till now, because the latest statistics concerning the death toll in Syria showed that more than 300,000 people were killed, in addition to leaving more than 20 million homeless over the world.
Well, unfortunately, sir, we ran out of time. So, Mr. Zakaria Osman Muhammad, a writer and a journalist at Al-Ahram newspaper, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks.
This brings us to the end of this episode of The World Today, but stay tuned for more updates on Now TV.